Hi everyone, I'm Mick. Welcome to my shop. So I've had my shaper in a couple videos, and I really like the shaper a lot. But when I use the shaper, I know you're not supposed to do this, but I tend to set it and go and do other things and try to keep an eye on it, obviously. And for the most part, that's worked. But there have been a few times where I almost had it crash because I didn't catch it. When I can usually hear when it stops cutting metal. But if I'm not paying attention, obviously it'll go to the end and crash. So in this video, I'm going to make some limit switches and attach them to either end, and so that it'll turn itself off when it gets to the end. So let's get started. Alright, so the objective is to make a couple brackets to mount these little micro switches to the shaper, and they'll serve as limit switches to turn the shaper off when it's traveled the full length that it can go, so I don't crash it. These switches have both a normally closed and a normally open circuit, so that's nice. So let's sketch out what we're going to try to build here. I'm envisioning a bracket that goes something like this. With a threaded hole here. And the switch will attach here. This is a side view, so it would be like this. And this bracket then would attach to the top of the slide. So let's go take a look at the cross slide and take some measurements. Okay, so this is the slide, cross slide, that I want to attach the micro switches to, and that clamp that we just saw would clamp right here. I know it's going to reduce the travel distance by a little bit, but I don't use the far extremes anyway, and if I need to for some reason, that's why I'm making them just clamp on here so I can just take them off if I need to. So the idea is that the switch would sit like that on this clamp. So I need to span this distance from here to here. I can come down this far, and then this side needs to be at least as long as the clamp itself. None of these dimensions are critical, so it's a good project for me. So let's see how wide this thing is. Oops, sorry. Bumping the camera here. What is that? That looks like 7/8. So if we make that 7/8, and then this distance here can be a max of 5/8. Okay, let's go back and draw this up. Okay, so we saw that on the shaper, this distance here is 7/8 of an inch. And this distance is 5/8 of an inch. And the length of the switch is just a hair over 3/4 of an inch. All right, so this dimension should be plus, so I have room for the screw. This dimension should be minus, so this doesn't hit the bottom. And this dimension should be plus, so that it gives enough room for the mounting. So let's go to the bandsaw and cut some stock off and lay this out on it. Okay, so here's the piece we cut off, just off of a piece of scrap that I had, and there's enough material here that we can make 2 of them out of it. So I'm going to put this in the mill and clean it all up just to get it to a square shape and without all these rough edges and stuff, and then we'll lay out the the pattern for making 2 of these and cut the part out. Alright, so I got a new tool we're going to try on this. It's called a tri-fly. This was recommended by Blondihacks, Quinn from Blondihacks. It is from a company, I think they were around North Carolina, I want to say, called Shrum Solutions, and she recommended it very highly. So I'm going to, it came with 2 sets of inserts, one for aluminum and one for steel. So let's get the aluminum inserts on here and let's see how it does on this piece. It's got a 3/4 inch shank on it, so I'm just using an R8 collet. Go. One nice thing about this is it's doesn't take up a lot of vertical room. Let's just try 5 thou. I always like taking really shallow cuts for the first try on things like this. I have a feeling it's going to do much better with deeper cuts than the fly cutter or even the face mill I had. So, but there's 5 thou. Carbides, so we're going to give it some speed. And I'm just going to hand feed it the first time. Oh wow, can't even hardly hear it, but it's definitely cutting. This is with no lubricant or coolant or anything, no WD-40. Wow. first pass. I'm going to do another pass and try to clean that hole up, and then I'll take it and show you what that finish looks like. That is absolutely gorgeous. Take this out and show you guys what this looks like. Good call, Quinn. Check that out. Smooth, quiet. Yep, nice call, Quinn. Well worth the money. All right, I'm going to clean up the other 5 sides, make it nice and square, and then lay out the lines to cut out the piece I need. Alright, so I've got the part clamped to my little fixture plate on the bandsaw, and actually just wanted to show what this looks like, because one of my viewers commented that I could put this lower jaw, or this back jaw back on, movable jaw back on, and simply clamp the pallet, the fixture plate, in between the 2 jaws. And I can certainly do that, which would allow me to attach the stuff at the bench and whatever. And the comment was that way you don't have to bend over, you know, hunch over the saw. And one of the things I thought might find interesting is that the saw, you really don't have to hunch over it. I've modified it such that it's on this cabinet, or this cart, and it's at waist height or even a little higher, so it's a very convenient height. But this way I have the flexibility that I can do as the viewer suggested, or I can do it attached to the saw. The advantage of this plate, one of the advantages of this plate, is that the front edge where the blade goes is 0 clearance on the blade, so it's close enough that I can use that as an alignment mark for where I want to cut. And obviously I'm going to leave some extra material because the saw cut is not going to be the finished cut, so I need more material to take off. But so anyway, let's cut this part off, and then we'll cut it in half on the other direction, and then go do the milling. So given that this inside dimension here needs to be over 7/8, it's going to need to be oriented this way, because this is the only dimension I can get 7/8 out of. So if we were to take this then and stand it on end, I need to slice this in half, which should work out just fine, because the switch will be hanging off the end like this. That should be plenty of meat. And then we'll cut it like this. And drill and tap for a screw in this side, and drill and tap for 2 screws to go through these little holes to mount this like that. We'll probably also not use this full depth, just cut it off somewhere around there. Alright, so I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw and cut 13/16, cut that part off, flip it up, and cut this in half. Alright, we're set back up in the mill. Got the two pieces that have been saw cut on 2 dimensions in the vise. And as you can see, this is one of the sides that was saw cut. So we're going to use the tri-fly cutter again and just bring them down, skim them down to where they're both the same dimension and square and make them look nice. Okay, we're going to find the center in this direction and the edge. Okay, so I'm drilling the hole for the screw to clamp it to the cross slide, and I'm doing that now before I've milled out the pocket to create the U, because the material will be kind of thin and I don't want to take a chance on it breaking off or anything when I get that done. So I can tap it later, but I just want to drill this hole through. And since I'll be removing the material anyway inside, it doesn't matter really how far down I go. So I'm just going down at 1/2 inch. Okay, so I've got the part clamped in the vise. I've got the 1/4 inch on either end marked. I'm going to mill out the U shape in the center, which is, so I need to mill down 0.5775. So I'm going to touch off and get the DRO zeroed on the top. Alright, so I've got my little brackets in the vise here. You can't actually see, you might be able to see the edge of one here. I didn't have a parallel short enough to secure it in the vise and yet still keep the thin little part clamped in this surface. So I'm just drilling tiny little holes in here so there's enough clearance to do it without. I've got the coaxial indicator set up. I just finished locating the first 2 holes and going to locate the next 2 holes and enter those into the DRO's memory so that I can just refer to the 4 points when I've got the drill mounted. Go down to the vicinity of our next hole. The holes are center punched from with the when I had the switch mounted on it or held on it. Now unlock the quill. Oops, sorry. Got the camera in here close because I'm trying to make sure you guys see what's going on. I know the coaxial indicator part's not anything new, but I don't often see people using the memory functions on the DROs, so, and this is the first time I've done it, so I thought I might as well go ahead and record it. Okay, so we've got that there. Looks quite obvious. It needs to go back to the right. go. Now I've got the spindle speed set to the slowest it'll go, which I find makes it much easier to locate the when the needle stops moving. So let's try a little bit more to the right. Alright, that's getting worse. Let's try the y-axis and see. Getting worse. Oh, gotta move the camera stand a little bit. There we go. Alright, I think we had it. About right there. Just passed over it. It's moving just a little bit, but that's going to be close enough. Alright, so now I'll take you up here and show you how I set the next memory. So I set the origin in absolute mode on the first hole. Okay, so let's set the position of the third hole. I set the origin in absolute mode for the first hole at 0, 0. The datum subdatum 1 point, which is the last hole I just set. You can see I moved the x-axis just a hair over 3 inches. And the y-axis I moved 16 thou. So now I'm going to go to subdatum point 2 by pressing the up arrow, and there I'm at subdatum point 2, and I'm going to clear out the x and the y. And now when I want to go to subdatum point 2 to drill, I just go to 0 at that point. And you can see if I go back to 1, there's my values I had there. And that's how far off I am from the origin point. So next we're going to set the fourth hole, and then we'll come back and drill. My micro switches are going to be attached to these brackets with 2 56 screws. So the drill size for a 256 is a number 50. So I've got a number 50 drill bit in the drill chuck, so let's go ahead and drill these and then we'll tap them. Alright, there we go. A couple holes drilled. Go tap those for 256 and attach the switches. Alright, there's the switch mounted on the bracket, mounted on the shaper. Same thing on the other side over here. So next I just need to wire it up and then put some sort of insulation on the terminals there so I don't accidentally electrocute myself. So let's get to it. Alright, so a slight design flaw has emerged. This screw that holds on the felt for the wipers hits the top of the bracket before the switch engages. It kind of pushes it over a little bit and then the switch engages, so I'm just going to use the die filer and notch out a little half circle there. So this is my killer die filer. It's a, sorry, bumping the camera there. It's a, what is it, model 1A. I really like this machine. I got it. It was in good condition, slightly rusty, but I completely stripped it down, sandblasted everything, polished everything, the tables and everything, replaced the motor that was on it with a treadmill motor, so I have variable speed now. And as you can see, painted it. I elected to paint it green because that's the color that they originally came. I didn't try to match the green though. But it's a cool little machine. I don't use it very often, but they're surprisingly expensive for what they are. I think right now Blondihacks is building a die filer, so I'm pretty sure anybody who's watching this knows who Blondihacks is, but I'll put a link down in the description just in case. So let's use it and notch these brackets out. Try to get it there so you can get a little better view of what's happening. That's a little hard on the hand. That ought to do it. A lot of people who have die filers seem to have trouble finding files for them. I found that Falcon Tool Company has a really good selection at a pretty reasonable price, and they're all brand new. They sell them under the name Swiss Parallel Files. I'll include a link to their site in the description as well if anybody's interested. Get my fat hand out of the way. Yep, that should do it. There we go. Works great. Alright, now I just need to wire it all up. And so let's get to that. All right, well, thanks for watching, everybody. And if you would do me a big favor and subscribe and hit the like button, I'd certainly appreciate it. Take care.